Welcome friends to another r/I don't work here lady video. Our first story of the day is by Enough Pizza Now. Went to senior center to deliver pizza, left with new mom. I'm a pizza delivery guy and was winding down for a much needed early close on Mother's Day Sunday. I'm one of the only people on staff who didn't have family plans that day. My family situation is what you might call complicated, so I worked all morning while short-staffed and was pretty beat. It was especially emotionally hammering to deliver so many pizzas to happy families visiting or hosting their moms. I was ready to go home and get drunk and forget about the whole stupid holiday. So I get a late call, just a few minutes before we closed, and decided to take it because money's money and it's a pretty big order, 6 pies. So I loaded up and realized about 3/4 of the way to the destination that the address was for the local senior center. They used to order all the time, tip really well, and make really sweet conversation before the pandemic. So I was psyched to see they were safe and steady enough to order pizzas again. I snuck them a side of breadsticks from a jerk who never tips and always harasses our female drivers that I was dropping off along the way. By the time he'd called to complain, we'd be closed. Suck on that, but not on your breadsticks. But anyways, I digress. I got there and was glad to finish off what had been an overall really crappy day with a pleasant trip to the senior center and carried the food to the front desk. The receptionist offered to carry the pizzas back, but she looked frail enough to be a senior center resident herself, so I said I was happy to get them where they were going. She COVID checked me and gave me a new mask. Not sure what was wrong with mine, but whatever. And I found my way to some event room where they'd ordered the pizzas. And it was a total gut punch. Literally just a room full of sons and daughters visiting their mothers and having some kind of festive party. My good mood went away real quick, and I dropped the pizzas on the table and shuffled out. But I realized that while they prepaid for the pizzas over the phone with a credit card, they hadn't tipped. So no matter how bitter I was, I had to make in-person contact with whoever had ordered the pizzas, or I had basically just wasted half an hour. I went around the room asking for Margaret, the name on the order, and eventually someone put me in front of her. Our shop doesn't have a uniform or anything, so I started to explain. "Hi, Margaret, right? You ordered," and she was really frazzled, I guess running the event. So she cut me off and was like, "Oh good, you're here. We were starting to wonder. I don't think Bonnie's been matched with anyone yet. Wait right here." I tried to cut in and explain I'd just delivered the pizzas and she'd mistaken me for someone else, but it went right over her head. She pushed an old woman over in a wheelchair and said, practically shouting, "Bonnie, this young man is here just for you." Before I could try my explanation again, Bonnie replied, "He is he? Well, full disclosure, son, don't get too attached, 'cause Jesus has my heart." Margaret, the one who'd ordered the pizza, or at least the name we had on it, whispered to me, "She's a real live wire. Have fun." And then Margaret and my tip were in the wind. Bonnie looked up at me and goes, "You like bridge? I hope you brought your checkbook," and started wheeling away to a table. I followed her, thinking I'd better not lose track of her until I could return her to Margaret. I spotted a woman with an ID badge who looked like she knew what she was doing and explained that I was the pizza delivery guy, but someone had left me with this old woman in my charge. I guess my explanation wasn't clear enough because I said something like, "Hey, I was actually delivering some pizzas up here," and the girl says, "You brought pizza? Aw, that's so nice. I'll make sure you're compensated." So at first I thought, great, all resolved now. But no, she gave me a wad of cash and this organizer disappeared, leaving me with Bonnie and her deck of cards. I kept looking for Margaret to return this lady to, but also did kind of enjoy making conversation with her and knew no other deliveries would be coming in since we'd closed on my drive over. I actually did like listening to Bonnie talk about the YouTube conspiracies she wholeheartedly believed and the spat she was having with the arts and crafts chaperone and so on. She even gave me a recipe. But I was worried that she had dementia and thought I was a family member. or that she was expecting a particular visitor and at any moment a guy would storm in and say, "What are you doing with my aunt?" or something. So finally, I saw the second organizer again, the one who'd given me the cash. I figured Margaret may never return, so I shouldn't wait for her, and I pulled the organizer aside and said, "Look, there's been a mix-up. I don't really know this woman." The organizer seemed distracted, and she was doing several things at once. And she very casually said, "Oh, there's no mix-up. The pairings were totally random. You weren't expected to have much in common. You'll get to know her. Don't overthink it." And receded back into the crowd while I was still saying, "No, I'm just delivering pizza." At that point, I seriously considered leaving because it wasn't my fault that these people were unorganized, but Bonnie was waiting for me with this huge grin on her face to play more cards, and it didn't look like there were any real relatives coming for her, so I figured I would stick it out for a few more games. I was eventually able to pick up in context from eavesdropping on other pairs that this was not a mother-child extravaganza. It was a volunteer event for women living at the senior home without kids or whose kids couldn't visit them. This was a huge relief because I would have felt really terrible if she was a dementia patient who thought her son had come, especially because I was kind of enjoying being mothered by her, for lack of a better term. It felt really good to have someone asking what I was doing at work and saying they were proud of me for things that weren't actually a big deal. She proudly bragged to everyone we passed on our courtyard walk about this silly little Employee of the Week award I just won. Basically title only. You get your photo on the wall, but everyone gets it at some point and usually more than once, but she made it feel really important. And I really secretly loved how she got outraged over minor transgressions on my behalf. Like, I told her how my landlord is sticking it to me on repairs. And she was like, "He's quite the ripe hare in the tuna," with such sincere gusto. She said she knew a guy who could tune him up for me, and I don't think she was talking about repairs, but I didn't follow up. Every time I tried to extricate myself, she'd have another activity she'd want to do. Once we finished cards, she wanted to do arts and crafts. Once we did that, she wanted me to push her around the courtyard. Once we did that, she was famished from the walk, even though all she did was sit on the wheelchair and wanted pizza. And I'd fed her 2 slices before an orderly appeared and angrily informed me she was not supposed to eat pizza. I don't know how she then ended up with a 3rd slice, but I seriously did not give it to her. Finally, the party was winding down and she wanted me to hang out and watch a game show with her. About 30 seconds into the show, she was asleep. I left her a coupon, even though I guess she isn't supposed to eat pizza, and headed home. It was kind of nice to spend Mother's Day doing Mother's Day type stuff. Really nice, actually. At this point in my life and career, if you want to call it that, I can have no wholly good memories that involve pizza, but this was pretty close. So happy Mother's Day to those who celebrated, and happy Russian Victory Day to those who didn't. So if you found yourself at this care center getting kind of looped into things and you didn't have any other priorities, would you go along with it and spend the day with them? Let me know in the comments down below. This next story is by Eileen Maloney. I agree, dude. Clean your shop. I was in Target, red, with my mom in my Kmart uniform, blue, looking at presents for Christmas. Because it's the massive toy sale of the year, the store was an absolute mess, but it was so busy, I reckon staff didn't have time to clean. A man approached and complained to me about the state of the store, how messy it was and someone should clean it. I was like, yeah, someone should clean it. And he said, "Well, get going and don't just stare at it. Do your job. It's disgusting. You're being lazy just standing there talking." My mom and I both realized he thinks I work here, not just having a yarn with some randos. And we both said in unison, "I/she doesn't work here." He looked flabbergasted. And I said, "Look, mate, I'm in blue, staff here wear red." I think the good thing is it seems like it kind of ended at that point. When you explained to them that you didn't work there, they were flabbergasted, but they didn't keep going on and on about, "You're a liar, go get your manager, blah blah blah." I feel like, while it's obviously not the brightest thing, you can kind of understand how somebody can mix up another person that's in some kind of uniform for working at some other place, just because people just don't put two and two together. As long as they're not continuously belligerent, that's really all that matters. Our next story is also by Eileen Maloney. Where's the watermelon? I was in Aldi wearing my uniform for work. Same color, different shop. And a woman approached me asking for watermelon. I said the fresh fruit is in the next aisle and it should be there somewhere, because I'm a nice person. She then says she looked and they aren't there, and could I look in the back? I replied, sorry, I don't work here. She then argued and yelled at me that I indeed do and she just wants watermelon. I just walked away and she yelled she would complain to my manager. Honestly, I think the moral of the story here is after you're done working, keep some really light jacket you can throw over your uniform or something, because there's a lot of people out there that are less than bright that would easily confuse you for an employee, even at a store that isn't the same coloration. And our final story of the day is by Epic Winterwolf. Do you know the price of these petunias? My family went to the local supermarket that happens to have a garden center. It was just me, my sister, and my mom. Despite some recent issues with my sister, we've started to build our relationship up again and now are pretty okay. I didn't have to go, but went with anyway, as it was not a busy day at the store and I needed to get out of the house. Mom went into the store to buy groceries while my sister and I were let to enter the garden center. Sis wanted to get some pretty strong shears because she started to garden and we have a nasty vine that's trying to take over the garden. We've been fighting it for years and now we're pulling out the big guns. So Sis and I end up arguing civilly about the strength, as she's a small young adult and I'm the larger of the two of us, but without the green thumb. Thus, I'm concerned about her safety. As we're discussing which strength to pick, an elderly lady approaches us and politely asks if either of us knows the price of the petunias she's picked up. My sister doesn't say anything, she was caught off guard, and I blink before politely asking if she had checked to see if there were any nearby price tags. There were a lot hanging around, but not for every plant. The elderly woman looks at us before her eyes widen and she apologizes. She said that she thought we worked here and is sorry that she put us on the spot like that. My sister shrugged it off and I smiled behind my mask and told the lady that it was okay. She smiled with her eyes, apologized again before leaving us. At that point, my sister grabbed the extra strength shears and said she was going to buy them. I finally shrugged and said okay to her, before watching her go to the register. When I looked the other way, I saw the elderly ma'am still looking around, and seeing that there were no actual employees around, thought that I would help her. I went over to the petunias and examined around them and the pots, before seeing tags with information and price. Smiling, I went over to the lady, at that respective distance, and politely told her that I knew where she could find the price. I led her back to the petunias and showed her where to find the price tag. She looked on her own, and voila! Under a leaf was the tag with a price. She thanked me, very happy, but I told her it wasn't a problem. She then said that, and I quote, that I was the most kind person she has ever met from my generation. It made me blush, and I do wonder if she was thinking of my actual generation or not, but it also saddened me. I was so happy to have helped her, and even helped her pick out her soil for her garden, and even brought it to her car because there were no employees around. It felt great to help her, but it upset me that there was literally no one around to help her. If my family hadn't come then, she may have waited hours to get help. So that's my wholesome I don't work here story. It just upsets me that there weren't any employees there to do their job. By the way, there were no job postings for their garden center. They should have had employees. And when I did see a garden center employee, as denoted by their unique uniform, he was wasting time in the far back area on his phone. I left a complaint at the desk, then went over, asked the guy if he was on duty, got stared at, and he asked me if that mattered. Let me just say, I gave him a piece of my mind. Moral of the story, if someone needs help, even for finding the price of something, help them. It's polite. And if you're an employee, do your darn job. I feel like you definitely have a tendency to want to believe that maybe it's just some bad circumstance that the employees were doing so bad today. Maybe someone was ill and couldn't make it. Or maybe there was some kind of accident and they couldn't get to the store. But when you see the employee just standing around in the back on their phone and acting all standoffish like that, it kind of just takes the wind out of your sails a little bit. I'm sure it's a lot working that job sometimes, but as far as the customer experience goes, it's disappointing to say the least. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.